Hi there, my name is Matti Sulanto, and in this video I'm gonna check out the Panasonic Leica 50-200mm F2.8 to F4 telephoto zoom lens. In my Leica 100-400 review video, I said this 100-400 is way too long for my purposes, and I was speculating that maybe the 50-200 would be the kind of right lens for me, and in this video I'm gonna find out if that is true. This 50-200mm is very similar to the 100-400. It's almost like a scaled down version of the 100-400. And this is of course a Leica branded lens, so it's premium quality and essentially a pro grade lens. The zoom range is very practical from 50-200mm. That 50mm focal length is suitable even for studio portraits, and the 200mm focal length is already in the super telephoto range. The maximum aperture is variable from f2.8 to f4, but in normal photography I don't think that's a big deal or big downside. The only situation where I can think of that it would be a major downside is a studio photography if you're using strobes or flashes. And even though I said portraits just a while ago, I don't think many people are going to use this kind of telephoto lens in a studio with strobes. But if you are going to use this kind of lens with a variable maximum aperture with strobes and you are shooting wide open, you're going to have to adjust the output of the flashes or strobes every time you zoom in or out, because the aperture will change. But like I said, I don't think this kind of telephoto zoom is much used in a studio, and in my opinion you wouldn't buy this lens to shoot in a studio. And also I think it's worth mentioning that this is compatible with Panasonic's 1.4 and 2 times teleconverters, which would add a little bit of versatility to this lens. I haven't tried those teleconverters, but I think the quality is pretty good, and usually if the teleconverter and the lens is well paired, the degradation of the image quality is not that bad or significant. And I believe those Panasonic teleconverters work really well with this lens, but like I said, I haven't tried them. The build quality of this lens is really good. It's all metal, at least it feels like it's all metal, and there's no unnecessary free play anywhere, and because it's like a premium grade lens, it's also dust, splash and freeze proof. The zoom ring is super smooth, as is the focus ring, which is focused by wire of course. There is no tripod collar, which I think is not a big downside, because the lens is not that heavy. And there's a deep plastic lens hood included in the price, of course. This lens weighs in about 740 grams with a hood, and the filter size is 67mm. So it's quite compact lens and not heavyweight at all, and it even doesn't look that big. And it balances really well on most Lumix camera bodies, except for the very small cameras, like for example the GX880. You could even handhold this with one hand, but of course a telephoto zoom is not very well suited for one-handed photography. I saw some people complaining about so-called zoom creep with this lens, but at least the sample that I have is not creepy at all. It stays really well at any focal length I set it at. And before we get into the technical specifications and the optical performance, let's take a look at some photos that I shot on this lens. Oh yes, and before I forget, please remember to sign up for my monthly newsletter. There's a link in the description, but you can also go to my website sulanto.fi to do that. Thank you. There is a lot of glass inside of this lens, and the optical construction is 21 elements in 15 groups, and there are several special glass and aspherical elements also inside of this lens to make sure the optical quality stays premium at all focal lengths and all apertures. The minimum focusing distance is only 75 centimeters, which at first doesn't sound like very short distance, but at 200 millimeters it is quite short, and it makes this almost like a macro lens. So in that sense it's similar to the 100-400, which also focuses very close. There is an optical stabilizer in this lens, and it's dual O.I.S compatible with a suitable camera body. And that is a very important feature, because no IBIS, regardless of the camera brand, no IBIS can properly stabilize a telephoto lens, because there is not enough room inside of the camera body for the sensor to move enough and fast enough to stabilize a telephoto or super telephoto lens. So the dual O.I.S is a really powerful and great feature, especially with a telephoto lens. And then the most important part, of course, the sharpness and contrast. This lens is simply very sharp lens. It's simply one of the best telephoto zoom lenses in the whole Micro Four Thirds lineup, in my opinion. The sharpness drops just a tad at 200 millimeters, but even there, this is really sharp. So you should be able to get very good crisp results on this lens regarding the technical quality of the images. The vignetting, distortions and chromatic aberrations are not visible because they are corrected in camera, or most RAW converters also apply the corrections automatically. So they are nothing to worry about, really. The autofocus is blazingly fast and virtually silent. And also the manual focus is pretty much as good as it gets with the focus by wire system. But I don't think you're gonna use manual focus that much because the autofocus is so good. And before my conclusion, which you may already guess, let's have some more photos that I shot on this lens. So here it is, my conclusion with this lens. It's compact, extremely well built, weather sealed. The focal length range is very practical and versatile, and it's extremely sharp lens. But it's also not a very cheap lens, around 1,500 euros or dollars. But I still think you get very good value for your money if you get this lens, because I don't think you can get any better telephoto zoom lens for your Micro Four Thirds camera if you're looking for zoom in this range. And yes, this is pretty much the perfect telephoto zoom for my photography. The range is just about right. 50 millimeters is not too narrow to begin with, and 200 millimeters is more than enough in most situations. I also don't need any faster maximum aperture, and the compact size is a big upside. But if you shoot a lot of wildlife, birds or something similar, maybe the 100-400 is your lens, because of also the very compact size and the extreme reach at 400 millimeters. But I'll take the 50-200 any day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll definitely see you in the next one.